back. In the previous recording, we had discussed about the lawmaking process and the roadmap of GST and constitutional background. Right? So in this video, let's discuss about taxes which are subsumed by GST, the benefits of GST, Consolidated Fund of India, levy and collection of GST on interstate supply, and GST Council. Now, let us understand why India is required GST. There are so many taxes applicable even before GST was introduced, right? So why the GST was so important to India? For that, you need to understand the taxes which were prevailing before the introduction of GST. Now, so we had central excise, and additional duties, right? So central excise is to be levied on the manufacture of the goods. So whenever the goods are manufactured, immediately after the manufacture, before its removal, central excise duty is to be levied. There were basic excise duty and there was special excise duty. There were all taxes, central excise duty and additional duty are subsumed by GST. Okay. Now again, excise duty on medicinal and toilet preparation. Same again, excise duty on the manufacture of medicine and toilet preparation. This is also subsumed by GST. Now, this central excise is on the taxable event was the manufacture. Now understand, GST is taxable event is on the supply, whereas central excise, the taxable event is on the manufacture. Now, similarly, service tax was applicable only in case of service providers. If you are engaged in providing any services, then you have to register under service tax and collect service tax. And CVD and special CVD. Now, as I said, even service tax is also subsumed by GST. Now, CVD and special CVD. What is this CVD? You need to understand. Now, whenever the goods are imported into the territory of India, then there will be a levy of basic customs duty, right? So basic customs duty, it means custom duty will be levied. That is for importation of goods. I'm talking about this prior to the implementation of GST. The goods, once it is imported, basic customs duty shall be levied. Once the basic custom duty is levied, then if the similar goods were manufactured in India, in case if the goods imported are manufactured in India, what would have been levied? Yes, central excise, right? So in order to compensate central excise, in addition to basic customs duty, there shall be an additional duty of central excise. So to the extent of central excise, that is called as CVD, that is countervailing duty. Similarly, once the goods are manufactured, you will have to supply. When you have to sell, you have to levy VAT. You have to compensate VAT. Additional again special CVD will be levied. That is also countervailing duty. So that is in order to compensate CVD. Now if you see overall these are the taxes which are subsumed, right? So here basic customs duty is not mentioned. It means basic customs duty is not subsumed by GST. It means it is continue to be levied as such. Normally, as per the provisions of customs duty, still basic customs duty shall be levied. So what is subsumed, what is taken over by GST is CVD and special CVD. Now understand why? Because this CVD was to compensate central excise. This CVD was to compensate VAT. Now tell me, central excise and VAT is subsumed? Yes. Therefore, even CVD and special CVD is also subsumed by GST. Right? Next, central sales tax. So there were two types of tax, that is VAT and CST. CST, the levy was by the central government, but the tax collection and administration was by the respective states. So, but it was the central tax legislation. So central tax CST is also subsumed by GST. Next, any central surcharge and cess so far as they relate to supply of goods and services, whatever the additional taxes in the name of surcharge, whatever used to be charged earlier, all are subsumed by GST. Say for example, in the service tax there was a Krishi Kalyan cess, there's so many cess like that. So all these are subsumed now, all these are taken over by GST. So these are all the taxes which was levied by the central government. Okay, so these are the central taxes. Similarly, there were taxes levied by the state government as well. So these are the state government taxes which are subsumed by GST. That is state VAT, that is sales tax, luxury tax. So there was a luxury tax, and say for example, if you are staying in a hotel where the minimum tariff is beyond the threshold limit, there used to be a levy of luxury tax. This was subject to a state government. Even this luxury tax is subsumed. Entry tax. Entry tax means whenever any goods, only specified goods which enters to a state, and there shall be additional levy in addition to the CST called entry tax. Even entry tax is subsumed by GST. Similarly, entertainment tax, tax on advertisement, tax on lotteries, betting and gambling, all are subsumed by GST. Now, earlier, central government used to collect the taxes directly from the whoever is registered persons, and similarly, the state is also used to collect the taxes. Now, these are the taxes which are subsumed by GST. Now, the question arises, since all these taxes were already there, then why government wanted to introduce GST? What is the importance of GST? Now, so I'll come to this first part later. So now, the important part is, see, after the introduction of GST, there were so many taxes, right? So almost 6 plus 6, around 12 to 13 taxes we have seen here. All have become only one now, that is goods and service taxes. Now, what are the advantages, you tell me? Yes, earlier, for if you are a manufacturer, okay, you have to register under central excise, and if there is a composite service, such as if after manufacturing you also have to provide AMCs. AMC is a service, so you have to register under service tax, you have to register under VAT. So again, you have to report to the state government, you have to report to the central government, you have to pay taxes online, again every month filing and different assessment, right? So this increased the cost for the registered persons, and also cost of compliance will also go up. So because of GST, there is a reduction in compliance cost. So reduction in compliance cost because of integration of GST. Similarly, it's benefited small traders and enterprises. Introduction of GST. How it is benefited to small traders and enterprises? Simple. Now there's only one registration. You be a service provider, you be a manufacturer, or simply only a trader, whoever you are, only one registration, GST registration. Now, earlier there was a different threshold for the compliance by the state as well as for the central. Now all these are removed. There is a threshold limit up to 20 lakhs, 10 in case of specified states. You don't have to take any registration. The GST is not mandatory. And up to 2 crore rupee, there is no audit compulsory under GST. So it is helping the small service providers and small businessmen from the implementation of GST. And it's automating the procedure with regard to the GST. Now, what is this automated procedures? Now, earlier what used to happen is, if I take the example of service tax, a person is providing a service, collecting service tax and remitting to the government. Now, government didn't have any mechanism to track the input tax credit. Say for example, if A is selling goods to, is providing service to B, understand, A is providing service to B. For B, there is an input tax credit, correct? Now, but government didn't have any control about the input tax credit, how that B has got the input tax credit. There is no matching mechanism, right? And also there used to be some cases, there's a lot of revenue leakage used to happen to the government. How? Now, since there is no information about the accumulation of input tax credit, whatever the service that registered person claims, that used to be allowed at the initial level, only detection used to happen only during the audit. Take the scenario, A is providing service to B and B has paid service tax to A, right? So B is eligible to take input tax credit, yes, and he takes input tax credit. Whereas assume A, who is providing this service, has not paid the amount of service tax to the government. In this case, what happens? Government is losing, first of all, the service tax, and second, it is allowing other person to take the credit of service tax even without central government receiving the service tax amount. So there used to be a huge loss to the government, revenue leakage used to happen. Now all these are automated, integrated. Now if A provides service to B, he will put the GST number of B. So government will come to know A has raised invoice to B, and what is the invoice value, what is the GST amount. So whether GST amount is paid or not, whether B is eligible to take the input tax, there's a better control that system in this infrastructure is established. So this is another advantage to the central government. Now, more than all, the another important factor is mitigation of all ill effects of cascading. And not only this, there is a seamless transfer of input tax credit. Now, you need to understand what is this cascading effect. So in order to understand what is cascading effect, you need to look at this example. Now, this just I've given this example under old regime. Assume a manufacturer is a manufacturer of computer, okay, and he is selling the computer, manufactured computer. Assume the his price he fixed is rupees 1 lakh, right? 1 lakh is the amount, and the central excess duty is 12.5%, that is 12,500 on 1 lakh is the central excise. VAT amount is 14.5%, but this 14.5% is to be levied on rupees 1 lakh plus 12,500. That is taxable value or assessable value for the purpose of VAT is the transaction value. This is 1 lakh rupee plus 12,500 is central excess duty. So here 1 lakh plus 12,500, on that value added tax has been levied. Now understand, on this 16,312 you're paying tax on tax. So 12,500 is basically central excess which you're paying to the government. On that also 14.5% is included here. Yes. Now assume the same computer is being sold to a retailer. So retailer is not in a position to take input tax credit of central excise. Why? Under GST and under central excise, only a first stage dealer and second stage dealer was eligible to take the input tax credit, not the subsequent buyers. So retailer, the moment it reaches the retailer was not in a position, he will lose of taking the input tax credit. So therefore whatever the central excise he pays, that becomes a cost to the retailer. So now tell me, what is the cost to the retailer? 1,12,500, that is rupees 1 lakh plus 12,500 of central excise. Anyway, this 16,312 whatever he has paid by the retailer will not become cost because he will take the input tax credit of VAT, right? But he cannot take the input tax credit of central excise. That is the reason that becomes his cost. So 1,12,500 becomes his cost. Assume his profit margin is 10,000 rupees and the total sale value will be 1,22,500 and he will charge VAT on 1,22,500 at the rate of 14.5%, 17,762. Here also the VAT amount is rounded off. Now assume the same laptop is purchased by the end user. That end user is a service provider. Assume the person who bought this laptop is a chartered accountant. Now what is the cost to the chartered accountant? Tell me. The total of 1,22,500 plus 17,762. Reason, since chartered accountant is a service provider, is not registered under VAT. Since he is not registered under VAT, though he uses the computer for providing the taxable services, he is not in a position to take the input tax credit. He cannot take input tax credit because he is not registered under VAT. So therefore, cost to him becomes 1,40,262. Now here also you see VAT 17,762, that is VAT is calculated on 1,22,500. Again on 1,22,500, this 12,500 is also included, that is central excise. Again there is a tax on tax. This tax on tax is called as cascading effect. What is the result? What is the impact of cascading effect? The impact of cascading effect is the increase in the cost. So therefore, in this example, under the old regime, so you will have the cost to a service provider, to a chartered accountant, for cost of buying 1 lakh worth of computer is 1,40,262 rupees. Now, I'll continue the same example under the new regime, under GST. Now manufacturer is selling the computer worth of 1 lakh. GST is 18%. Now he will sell the good at 1,18,000. Cost to the retailer is only 1 lakh because he is eligible to take the input tax credit, right? So again he will add his same profit margin 10,000 rupees. Now note this, both the manufacturer and retailer are selling at the same price, having the same profit margin, but the sale value here is 1,10,000 and 19,800 is the GST that he is going to collect. Whereas what will be the cost to the end user, that is a chartered accountant here? 1,10,000. How much was the cost earlier? 1,40,000, right? So because of cascading effect, the cost to the end user will go up. Now under GST, because of cascading effect, the cost will be reduced. Clear? So this is the the effect of cascading. And also there is a seamless transfer of input tax credit. Now as I said, if you are registered earlier, if you are registered only under VAT, because if you are a trader never used to be registered under service tax. Similarly, service provider never used to be registered under VAT. So if service provider takes any goods which is used for the purpose of his business, he was not able to take any input tax credit. Similarly, any trader who takes any services which is used for the purpose of providing his business was not in a position to take input tax credit because he was not registered under service tax. So there is no seamless transfer of input tax credit here. So because of that, they have to absorb the cost. Ultimately, that will impact the end user. Now, because of GST, all these have been affected. So these are the advantages of GST, implementation of GST. So this is the reason the introduction of GST was so important in India. All right. Okay. We'll move to the next topic. Consolidated Fund of India. Now, consolidated fund is similar to, you can say it's a bank account of government. Right? When I say of central government, state government, each state government will have its separate account. There are multiple accounts. There are account for contingency fund, public fund. There are so many funds which will be there. But this Consolidated Fund of India, you can say, is a mother of all the accounts, because it is mother of all the account, because all the revenue of the government, including whatever the amount collected in the form of direct taxes, indirect taxes, whatever it is collected, and also the amount borrowed. Everything forms part of Consolidated Fund of India. It goes into the Consolidated Fund of India. When the amount goes into the Consolidated Fund of India, the withdrawal, the payout from Consolidated Fund of India, it requires the approval of the Parliament. For amount getting into the Consolidated Fund of India, directly it will get into the account. But if the government is spending money from Consolidated of India, it has to take the approval of the Parliament. That is the reason every year budget happens. Only after the budget, only approval of the Parliament, amount will be withdrawn from the Consolidated Fund and will be spent accordingly. Right? However, this amount, whatever is withdrawn based on the budget, there will be audit, and auditor is called as Controller and Audit General of India, and this audit and auditor will do the audit of all these accounts. Right? Now let us see Article 269 about levy and collection of GST on interstate supply. Now this is important for you. Consolidated Fund of India is also required. Why? There's the relevance of section 269 is linked with Consolidated Fund of India. Now let us see this. We have seen yesterday that the power, central also has the power to make a law relating to taxation of GST, and state also has the power. However, especially relating to the transaction of interstate supply, who has the power to make the law? It is central government. Not only that, if you also remember, we have studied in the previous class that any goods or services which are imported into India shall be deemed to be the interstate supply. So if that is deemed to be an interstate supply, who has the power to make the law? Central government has the power to make the law. Now we are talking exclusively Article 269 exclusively talking about levy and collection of GST on interstate supply. Now, goods and service tax on supply in the course of interstate trade or commerce shall be levied and collected by the central government. That is Government of India, central government. Okay. Next, and such tax shall be apportioned between the union and the state in the manner as may be provided by the Parliament by law on the recommendation of the Goods and Service Tax Council. Now, there are two parts in this particular clause. Number one, the first part of the clause is central government can levy, that is Government of India can levy taxes on interstate supply. Second, whatever the amount collected by the central government, that has to be apportioned between the union and state. Now, remember, we are not talking about here CGST component. We are not talking about here SGST component. What we are talking about here is the IGST component. So IGST component, there should be a separate levy because Article 265 says no taxes shall be levied unless authorized by a law. So central government has the power. The power is vested with central government. So through a law. So that is the reason IGST Act is introduced. Now, this once the amount is collected, this amount has to be apportioned between the central government as well as state government. So though the power to levy lies with the central government cannot retain the entire amount. It has to be apportioned between the central and state. How it has to be apportioned? How much has to be given to which state? So that will be in a manner as prescribed. Okay. So Section 17 of IGST Act talks about with relevant to other provisions of article. So whenever I discuss about IGST, I'll talk about including this some other provisions of the article. That is the reason few articles of the Constitution I'm not touching now, that I will take it up once I am discussing about IGST. Now, Again, there is an explanation given which we know, which we have discussed earlier. For the purpose of this clause, supply of goods and services are both in the course of import into territory of India shall be deemed to be supply of goods or services are both in the course of interstate trade and commerce. We have already discussed. We are talking IGST is levied on two circumstances, right? One is as of now, so far whatever we have discussed. So one is in the course of interstate trade or commerce, that is transaction between one state to another state, and second one at the time of importation when the goods are imported, that is an import, there is a customs duty shall be levied, right? For the purpose it shall be deemed to be a interstate supply. So therefore interstate supply in these two circumstances, so central has the power to make the law and collect the taxes. Now another important point that you need to see, because when we are discussing about consolidated fund of India, we have seen whatever the tax which are collected by the government, that goes into the consolidated fund of India, right? So now this article 269A says where an amount collected as tax levied under clause 1 has been used for payment of tax levied by the state under 246A, and such amount shall not form part of consolidated fund of India. Now this is very, very important. Now clause 2 is talking about the taxes levied under clause 1. Please underline that. What is specified in clause 1? What is specified in clause 1, this of 269, is only IGST, not SGST and CGST or UTGST. So therefore only IGST which is received will not go to the consolidated fund of India. Why? What is the reason? Because we have already seen, if you draw the amount, if you take out the amount from the consolidated fund of India, you need to take the approval of the parliament. So IGST component has to be distribution, has to be apportioned between the state. So every apportionment otherwise is to require the approval of the parliament, right? So that is the reason it was kept aside. So therefore it will not go to the consolidated fund of India. Whatever the share of government after apportionment, that will go to the consolidated fund of India. In the other words, say IGST, it has to be apportioned between union and state government, right? After making the payment to the state government, whatever the amount which will remain out of the pool of IGST, that amount will go into the consolidated fund of India. So the amount of IGST, whatever collected, will not go to the consolidated fund of India. Am I clear? Okay. Now GST Council, Article 279A talks about GST Council. 279A provides for constituting a council called the GST Council within 60 days from the date of commencement of 101st Constitutional Amendment Act. It is constituted and approved. We have seen in the roadmap when the GST Council was formed. And now members of the GST Council. Now Union Finance Minister will be the chairperson. Union Finance Minister. Finance Minister of the Center will be the chairperson. Then Union Minister of State in charge of Revenue or Finance. Okay, so this Finance Minister is a cabinet, any minister who will be in charge. One person, one member of parliament will be nominated, will be appointed to take care of that particular state revenue. So he will be reporting to the Finance Minister. So that person will also be a member. Plus the minister in charge of finance or taxation or any of other minister nominated by each state government. Now he may be an MLA or he may be any person can be nominated by state government who is a representative of state government. So in the GST Council, all these members, okay, so it is represented by state government as well as central government will be there, and vice chairperson chosen among the members. So it means this chairperson is a finance minister, but vice chairperson shall be any other person who will be chosen among the members. there are certain powers which is given to the GST Council, that is levy of taxes and deciding the rates on GST and reduction in the rate of GST. All the powers are given to the GST Council. So GST Council will be holding the meeting, and that meeting will decide. So therefore, unlike earlier, because even the rate changes used to happen during the budget time related to indirect taxes, now it is with the GST Council. That again we will discuss this in detail about article, again further the powers of the GST Council. All right, now thank you so much. This is the end of the current session. In case if you like this video, please subscribe. If you subscribe, you will get the notification, and click on the notification bell. You will get the notification for the subsequent video. See you in the next class. Thank you so much.